What are we making today? Are we rolling? Today we're making parathas. This is one of my favorite things ever. My mom would make it for us every Sunday morning. It's a type of flatbread, very different from like your standard tortilla or wrap because it's got these flaky layers because we roll it out really thin, spread it with some butter, coil it up and then roll it out again, and then when you cook it up it gets really flaky and light and crisp. So it's almost like you're eating pie crust. Who doesn't want that? So the dough's really simple. I've just got some all-purpose flour and kosher salt. Gonna start by whisking it in. Now I've got a couple tablespoons of vegetable oil. I'm gonna rub it into the flour. I like to do it by hand because it is so easy. When I was a little kid, my mom would have me sit in the corner and just rub oil into flour for hours. She told me it had to be done for a minimum of 3 to 4 hours, but I think it was just a way to get me to sit down. So now I'm gonna add some warm water. The warm water just brings the dough together a little bit faster than cold. What do you call this? I make like a rake with my fingers and I just stir it around like this until it comes together in like a shaggy mess. And then I get in there and knead. You just want the dough to come together and that's it. It's very simple. So right now the dough isn't very pretty or smooth or anything, but that's totally fine. We're gonna let it rest for an hour and it will become perfect all by itself. So my dough's rested for about an hour. The flour's like fully hydrated all that water, and you can see it's really smooth now. And that just happened as it sat. We didn't have to do a thing. So now I'm gonna divide this up into 8 portions. I just eyeball this. It's not a big deal. I like to cut it like a pie. In half, in half. So now we're gonna work with one dough ball at a time, and I'm gonna let the rest chill out. I'm gonna cover it with a towel so they don't dry out. So this is the first roll, and the goal of the first roll is just to get it as thin as possible. We're not trying to make it pretty or round or anything at this point. So it helps to not flour it too much because you want some friction. Having it stick to the table a little bit kind of helps you pull it and get it more thin, but I like to gently flour the top so it doesn't stick to my rolling pin. And I like really put my back into it. Ooh, I just want to get it thin by any means necessary. Doesn't matter if it's pretty. My grandmother, when she did this, I swear it was like she put the rolling pin over it once and it was super thin like phyllo. And it took her like seconds and I don't know how she did it. The thinner it is, the better your flakes are gonna be. So now I'm gonna spread on a little bit of ghee. Ghee is an Indian style of clarified butter. You wanna keep it at room temp, get it to soften, but you don't wanna use melted ghee because when you do the second roll, all the butter's gonna ooze out. So you want something that's spreadable, but still solid. If you don't have ghee, you can use butter. My mom, even in a pinch, would use Crisco. She didn't have anything around. It'll still work. You just want to get little dabs of butter. That's gonna help keep our flaky layers separate. So now that I've got the ghee kind of on there, I'm gonna do a little sprinkling of flour. This also helps keep the layers distinct when we do the second roll. Now we're gonna coil it up. A lot of people have different ways of doing this. Some people cut the dough into strips and stack it together. Other people fold it like an accordion. But this is the way my mother, my grandmother, all my aunts do it. So just pull it from the top and roll it. Now that we have this rolled tube, I'm gonna roll it in from both ends, coil it up like this, and fold it on top of each other, and boom! We've created a ton of layers in this dough. And when we roll it out again, it's gonna be just like puff pastry. Once you've got your little snail, you wanna let it rest covered for at least an hour before you do the second roll. So my little spirals of dough have rested. It's time for the second roll. Now for this one, I'm gonna use flour to keep it from sticking, just like you would roll any flatbread. To keep a nice round shape, just give it a little spin after each roll. So I don't know how my grandmother would do this, but she could get it to spin like while she rolled it by applying the pressure, but I can't, so I use my hand. There's no shame. No shame in my rolling game. Little spin, Don't worry about using too much flour at this point. You can always dust it off later. You don't want this dough to stick. You put so much work into getting all these layers in there. You don't want to lose it to the board. I like to do it in a dry pan first to kind of get the starches to cook through. And then I add a little ghee to finish it and crisp it up. It's a bit thicker than your standard flatbread, so it takes a while to cook. So as you can see, there's not much color, but it's lost that stickiness. This is now done with the first dry pan cook. Now at this point, I could stop, hold these at room temp and then cook them later when I'm ready. Or you can bag these up and store them in your freezer and then pop them out whenever you want paratha and do just a quick pan fry in ghee from frozen. I'm gonna add some ghee now. I'm still on medium heat. Now check this out. It looks like a paratha now. Yay! You haven't even ripped into it and you can see there's flakes happening. Wait, once it's cooked through, you want to give it a little crack and that just lets the steam escape so it doesn't get soggy. We're ready. What are we saying? So my parathas are all ready here. Golden brown, crispy, and flaky. Ready for your curry or whatever. It's also really good just as bread. I like making grilled cheese with these. I guess it's more of a quesadilla when you make it with this. And you can see when you pull it apart, all of those layers we worked hard to make. This just tastes like Sunday mornings with my mom.